I often like to check what games are leaving services such as PS Plus or Xbox Game Pass just to make sure there's nothing I really want to play but maybe passed me by or I never got round to while on the service. On this occasion, that turned out to be Digimon Survive, which was leaving PS Plus in November 2025. Now, I've not really consumed any Digimon media since the first 2 seasons of the anime, which came out at the right time for a young Badru. I was there in the time where it was debated if Pokemon or Digimon was better, and if Digimon was just a rip-off of Pokemon in general. You can say I'm sitting on the fence, but I really liked both as felt they brought different things, and Digimon did feel a little bit more grown up, probably because the characters were a little bit older than Ash and Pokemon, and just felt a little bit darker. I then hit the 3rd gen of both Digimon and Pokemon, and apparently was too cool for them as I was moving into my teenage years, and just left them both in the dirt. I did watch the first season of Digimon again a few years later, getting my younger brother into it, but never ventured past that point. I didn't fare much better on the games front as they seemed to pass me by, and I only played a little of the original Digimon world in PS1, and all I can really remember is your Digimon pooped. In recent years, I've wanted to consume more anime as I feel a lot of the most popular ones have had an impact on general world culture, so maybe playing Digimon Survive might get that anime spark going. Digimon Survive is a visual novel style game with some tactical RPG elements, and I use the word some pretty loosely. It was developed by Hyde and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment and released on the PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch and PC in 2022. The visual novel style gameplay was a major departure from what had come before in the Digimon series, with games up until that point mainly being in the RPG or pet raising sim genre, and as much as there are tactical RPG elements involved in this game, it's weighed heavily with at least 80 to 20 split on the visual novel side. The game was first announced in 2018, but suffered a number of delays due to factors such as the COVID-19 pandemic, having to rework some of the game's systems, and changing developer from Witchcraft to the eventual developers Hyde, which took it from a 2-year development to a 4-year one. The producer on the game, Kazumasu Habu, apologies if I've butchered that, confirmed that the change of studio was made as he originally wanted to make a game with a smaller team and budget than usual for a Digimon game. As development went on, he realised that it wasn't going to be possible and had to switch to a larger studio and budget to make the game he envisioned. Unfortunately, this came with its own issues, as Witchcraft were using a custom engine to develop the game which Hyde had no access to, so had to completely restart development on the game in the Unity engine. The game follows the player character Takuma and a group of teenagers who are attending a camp during a spring break and decide to visit a nearby shrine depicting the legend of the Kemonogami, or Digimon as we all know them as. While there, strange things start to happen, such as a snowstorm in the middle of spring and being attacked by odd and aggressive creatures. The group black out, and when they regain consciousness again, they start to encounter their own strange partner monster, such as Koromon, soon to be Agumon for Takuma, and it soon becomes clear that this is not their world anymore. The rest of the game has the group trying to investigate where they are and ultimately find a way back home. It's hard not to draw comparisons with the story in Digimon Survive to that of the first season of the anime, Digimon Adventures, but it is possible that this was intentional. As already mentioned, the game is presented in the style of a visual novel where most of the time you are watching the story unfold in front of you through either voiceover, which is entirely in Japanese with no English dub, and lots of reading, which is the only way to consume the game unless you understand Japanese obviously. I do appreciate that this does add to its authenticity and makes it feel like an episode of the anime, but for me personally I found it pretty hard going with all the reading and probably, controversially, the lack of an English dub, but that is probably down to my terrible attention span. You can set text auto advance rather than having to press a button continuously, which I did end up doing, but there were times I did zone out and missed what was going on, but that's likely a me issue. During these story segments, options can be chosen by the player and what to respond with, and in turn these often dictate how the story will proceed. Many of these options are broken down into 3 different types of moralities: harmony, moral and wrath, which directly correlate to what Agumon will digivolve into. There are other dialogue options outside of the morality ones when speaking with others in the group, which affect the affinity you have with them. Building up affinity with each character will help their own partner Digimon reach the next level of evolution, and can also decide their fate as the story progresses. Overall, with the dialogue choices deciding how the story progresses, playing the game multiple times could be slightly different, leading to a different ending, which does promote the idea of replayability. As much as there's a lot of reading, the story is pretty good for the most part. I did however get pulled out of it at times due to typos in the translated subtitles, and at times the same conversation was being had repeatedly with different characters, which just got a bit tiresome, and situations where it feels like previous conversations are just forgotten about even though they only happened minutes before. There does also feel like there's a lot of filler, but thankfully a skip already seen dialogue option has been added, which is useful if going for multiple playthroughs to get a different ending, while not wanting to have to sit through or manually forward already seen conversations. Outside of the main story dialogue sections, there are also exploration ones. These parts act as a sort of point and click game where you can visit different locations and either talk to other members of the group where you can build the aforementioned affinity with them or continue the story. You may even be able to find items that can be useful and are highlighted as glitches when investigating using a phone's camera. There are not many locations, but each location does look nice, even if there are some low textures used at times, but all adds to the aesthetic of the environment the characters find themselves in. The last main component of the game is the tactical RPG sections. These are battles that play out certain parts of the game, where you can select a certain number of Digimon to be in play, and on their turn they can move a certain distance as shown by squares on the ground, and attack an enemy within range. More damage gets dealt if you're able to go to the side of the enemy, or even better, behind it. The combat system is fine, but it does feel like it was a bit of an afterthought. It's very basic, repetitive, and didn't really provide much of a challenge, which just started to feel more of a chore as the game went on. This could have possibly been due to my combat difficulty being set to either easy or medium while playing, so not sure if a higher difficulty would provide more of a challenge, but I have seen others criticise the combat, so don't think I'm alone in that thinking. After a while, I just end up using the built-in auto battle system for most of the combat encounters. There are a few set options you can go for when selecting the auto battle, such as strategic approach or an all-out attack, which is what I went for most times, sat back and had a cup of tea. Free battles also exist and can be accessed when in the exploration mode through an option in the list of locations that can be visited. These are useful in levelling up your Digimon, as well as being able to recruit new members to the team from the enemies you are facing. This is done via a talk option with the enemy you wish to recruit. They'll pose the player 3 statements or questions, which you'll need to answer correctly based on 4 different answers based on the Digimon's personality. Most options and answers seem a bit nonsensical, so knowing which to select in itself is a bit of guesswork. That is, unless you have a bit of guidance from the World Wide Web. Thankfully these options don't change, so if having to retry, it is possible to learn or remember what the correct options are. Even if you are successful, however, you are not guaranteed to be able to recruit that Digimon, as you'll be presented with a percentage chance of being able to convince them to join the team. That does mean you may have to go through the process multiple times, which does become a little bit of a pain in the arse. Once you get to this stage, if you decide you don't want to try and recruit the enemy anymore, you can also simply ask for an item, which I did a few times. The percentage chance of recruiting was really low. I also wanted to highlight that the music in the game is really good, though it does get a bit repetitive with a small number of tracks used, so they are played fairly often. The game also has a really good art style outside some of the aforementioned low-res scenery, with the general dialogue scenes looking like models from the actual anime, and the chibi art style they have used for characters during battle looks pretty awesome. As much as I love most of the story in the game, the art style and character style, and the fact that it has rekindled my love for Digimon, I can say unfortunately the game is not for me, even if it did get to the point to push me for the platinum, but that's just because my unhealthy compulsion to do so kicked in. Don't get me wrong, I do love me some story heavy games like the ones from Telltale or Life is Strange series, but it's safe to say that they are a lot smaller in story segments with action sequences added in, even if they are cheap quick time events. The dialogue is also in a language I understand, which makes it easier to stay focused, but again, I know that's a me problem and pretty symptomatic of the attention span of the general population these days. I do know that the game was marketed to be more visual novel than a strategy RPG, but how these sections of the game panned out was pretty disappointing due to simplicity and repetitiveness of them, which also just made them feel like a chore. This just makes it hard to recommend the game to anyone unless they really love story heavy visual novels and have an interest in Digimon. Due to this, I would give the game a 6.5 out of 10. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Again, consistency has not been my strongest point, with videos few and far between, but it's been a bit of a crazy year, so I'm hoping to upload a bit more in 2026. If you're not already, it'd be greatly appreciated if you could subscribe and drop the video a like, as it really helps. All my other social links can be found in the description below if you'd like to follow me elsewhere, including a Discord that I'm trying to get off the ground. Take it easy everyone, and catch you in the next one.